A film that made Marvel summer box office profits and made them a thing in the film industry.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the first of a review series I am currently doing, and it's for the one that started it all, and the first Marvel film of the 2000s. And it was the film that really made them a summer box office king. And it was also, not only that, it's also their first to feature a superhero team. And that being said, guys, this is going to be for 2000s, the first installment of the X-Men franchise, obviously, X-Men, which was directed by Bryan Singer, as we all know, and was released around July 2000. Kicked off the 2000s era, and pretty much kicked them off as summer box office kings. So, what's the plot film? Well, in a world where both mutants and humans fear each other, Marie, better known as Rogue, she runs away from home and she hitches a ride with another mutant, known as Logan, the Wolverine. Then, the owner of a school named Professor Charles Xavier, or short, Professor X, sends Storm and Cyclops to bring them back before it is too late. So, Magneto, on the other hand, Professor X's nemesis, or frenemy, as we kind of call him, he believes a war is approaching, has an evil plan in mind, and needs, young Rogue to help him. So, yeah. So, how was this movie made? Well, it was back in 1984 when development of an X-Men movie began. And Orion Pictures and James Cameron, Catherine Bigelow were in discussions to make the project. Then that sadly didn't happen. It was going to happen at Orion Pictures. It sadly didn't happen. But then Fox bought the film rights in 1994, 10 years later. And scripts and treatments were commissioned from Andrew Kevin Walker, John Logan, Joss Whedon, and Michael Chabon. Singer signed on to direct the film in 1996, Bryan Singer. And further rewrites by Ed Solomon, Singer, Tom DeSanto, Christopher McQuarrie, Hayter, where Beast and Nightcrawler were going to be deleted over budget concerns from Fox, but they got bought in the sequels. So they weren't completely erased. So X-Men then marked the American debut for Hugh Jackman, which was the last second choice for Wolverine, and casted 3 weeks into filming. And then finally, X-Men could finally begin filming. So filming for the movie took place from September 22nd, 1999 to March 3rd, 2000, a few months before it released in theaters in Toronto. Yeah, so after the movie was complete, then it came on to advertising the film and releasing the film. Once this film was released, it first premiered at Ellis Island on July 12, 2000, then got released to the public in the theaters US on July 14th, 2000, 2 days after its premiere. When it came to the reactions of the movie got positive reviews from critics, and because, well, y'all know, this film made them summer box office profits, it of course was a box office success. It wasn't like let's say Spider-Man levels of box office, but it was decently box office wise. It made $296 million worldwide, so of course it bought up a franchise. So its budget was $75 million at the time. And it would lead to a series of films, and it spawned re-emergence of the superhero film genre. Ever since this movie, we've had films like Spider-Man 2002, Hulk 2003, Fantastic Four 2005. The Spider-Man films reached the same success. The other stuff, not so much. But honestly, today's world, the 2000 stuff in today's world actually seems watchable compared to the Marvel shit we're getting today. That I can agree with people on. But yeah. So, now when it comes to my reaction. When you have this first X-Men movie, It's a good film. It's a good film, but it's not masterpiece worthy. People who don't call us a masterpiece, I can see where they're going. It's good, but it's not like a masterpiece. It's not as good as like Spider-Man 2002. All like I think that's better than this when it comes to the non-MCU Spider-Man stuff. I think that trilogy's better. Like this is known as this was known as the film that made Marvel's summer money makers and revived the superhero genre that kickstarted with 1998's Blade. Like before Blade came out, the superhero genre was failing. Batman and Robin proved to be such a disaster. People lost hope for the superhero film industry. They even had Spawn, that even did not do well. There was a Judge Dredd movie with Sylvester Stallone that apparently sucked ass. That didn't do well. RoboCop 3 killed RoboCop franchise. Ninja Turtles 3 killed the Ninja Turtle franchise. The comic book movie genre was really screwed. But then 1998, Blade released, and it surprised many Marvel fans. It was like mixed received by critics, but the fans really loved Blade. It made a really decent profit, and so it saved the superhero genre. And after releasing Blade, that proved to surprise many people. They went on to make X-Men for their next movie. Marvel did. Now that Marvel was a big name in the big film industry, they went on and they would go to make X-Men as the next characters to adopt. Yep. And also the first superhero team to be portrayed in a film. Because most of the time before like this, most of the superhero films we were getting were solo characters. This was our first team characters in a movie. The X-Men comics from the 1960s, we all know they're more politically progressive, more like complex than superhero stories like Superman, where the heroes are always right, and like justice, the American way always prevails. Like this series is well-crafted parable about individually discrimination. The characters are like mutants struggling to find a place in society that rejects them. The villain of the movie, Magneto, he's not like an evil lunatic. He's actually a sympathetic character. He's a misguided revolutionary, like he would knew to Professor Xavier's Martin Luther King, or the iconic chapter, like for you first meet Wolverine. He's a beer-swilling anti-hero who cares little for ideas and fights only to protect himself and his loved ones. And the female characters are pretty powerful and important as the men, than just being mere love interests. And like when it comes to this whole movie, rather than just make it another flashy explosion per minute special effects extravaganza, Bryan Singer practices the lost arts of character and plot development, and as a result, the movie has greater depth than the average big budget summer flick. The acting's quite good on the whole. Hugh Jackman is fantastic in the Wolves Wolverine. I don't think anyone else can play him better, regardless, and like it's definitely this perfect little Clint Eastwood caliber badass, and like some of the dialogue does get cheesy at times, but when it comes to the hands of Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart, it's quite convincing. Like this was the film that like this movie, like Patrick Stewart already had a career of himself, but this film like really like further revolutionized his career. Like, and ever since this movie, we've had many comic movies since the year 2000. Quite a few of them even being X-Men movies. It would be like when this movie came out, y'all remember, like, people were starting to finally regain their faith in the comic book industry, like, this, like, really got the ball rolling. This got them back to the comic book industry again. It brought life back. Like, there had been Batman and Superman before that. They were DC properties. They existed within a bubble of their own. And then those properties were really starting to decline. Batman Forever, Batman and Robin were duds. Superman 3 and 4 were duds. But then, of course, 1998, you had Blade. It was definitely based off a Marvel character, no doubt, but it's not like Blade wasn't like I wouldn't call a superhero movie. It's a Marvel character, but not like a superhero movie. And then it comes to the first Blade. The first Blade is more supernatural horror action. It's not till Blade 2 it becomes more Marvel-like. Blade 2 is more of the superhero film. Blade 1's just more of the supernatural action horror movie, in a way. And some people apparently didn't even know like Blade was a comic book character at the time. It's this movie that was the first successful superhero movie on Marvel characters. It takes the source material seriously, treats it with respect, does away with the notion that superheroes are just kid stuff. And after this, we got a whole bunch of comic book movies based on Marvel properties. Like, yeah, we had the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. We had the two Fantastic Four movies. And then, like, around 2008, we had the creation of the Infinity Saga with 2008's Iron Man. Right there. This film really made an impact. And the casting is spot on. Like Hugh Jackman became an even bigger star with his performance as Wolverine here. Right here. And, like, yeah. And honestly, the only Wolverine that really works in my eyes, like the one casting, like I don't think anyone else can get the role better. The casting of Patrick Stewart's Professor X was definitely terrific, was very well suited for the part. Ian McKellen is terrific as Magneto, and this was definitely back before he got casted as Gandalf a year after this movie. Then you got another great cast members work too. You got Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, and to me, guys, Rebecca Romijn is the only Mystique, not you know who. Moving on. Halle Berry is terrific as Storm. Anna Paquin is terrific as Rogue. Famke Janssen is perfect as Jean Grey. James Marsden, despite not getting much to do in these movies, he's terrific as Cyclops. Even. Now I even enjoy the chemistry between Hugh Jackman and Anna Paquin. And their scenes are some of definitely the best moments of the movie. So how do we begin this movie? Well, we literally begin with like seeing a younger Magneto first. It's 1944, it's German-occupied Poland. The 13-year-old Magneto gets separated from his parents. When being forced into a concentration camp, he tries to get back in after the gates are closed, but he gets restrained by guards, and the gates curl in towards a group, and attracted by a magnetic force, and the boy then gets knocked unconscious by another guard. Then we get to the present day, where you meet Rogue, or Marie, Anna Paquin, played by Anna Paquin. She's studying with her boyfriend at her house in Mississippi. Hug together, they kiss. Knox Melly almost dies, so this gets her screaming when her mother arrives. She's then terrified of what she did. She immediately leaves home. And then we get to the Congress, where Bruce Davison's character, Robert Kelly, is trying to pass this Mutant Registration Act. It's going to force mutants to reveal their identities and abilities. So this leads to our antagonist, now grown-up Magneto, now played by Ian McKellen this time, begins his plans to level the playing field between mutants and humans. And then, of course, when on the run, Maine meets our other great character, Wolverine, aka Logan, at this local bar in Canada. And Rogue's mutation makes her temporarily assume the powers of any mutant she touches, while Wolverine, on the other hand, possesses superhuman healing abilities, heightened scenes, and of course, you all know, like you saw in my thumbnail, metal claws that emerge from his knuckles. Then, both of them get attacked by Tyler Maine's character, Sabretooth, who is a mutant and an associate of Magneto. Then, Cyclops and Storm arrive, they save Wolverine and Rogue, and they bring him to the X-Mansion, where the school run by Professor X. He runs the facility, he leads a group of mutants trying to seek peace with the human race, and they educate young mutants that are responsible for the use of their powers. And they stop Magneto from starting a war, and they want to stop Magneto from starting a war of humanity. So yeah, the entire concept of like the government attempting to legislate mutant behavior seems pretty may seem nonsensical, but it would seem nonsensical, like there's Senator Kelly railing about powerful mutants, being able to control one's thoughts. Like, would anyone see a problem there? Well, if they had the kind of power, would it affect civil authorities trying to bring them under control? Like, you'd have to look beyond that aspect, though. If the story would work. Like, it's not perfect or anything, but its status is like the one that paved way for more comic films. It's worth admiring. Like, there's some... Yeah, the film had problems that prevents it from being, like, a masterpiece, per se. Problems of the problems are like you have like the Statue of Liberty climax. It's filmed perfectly and a lot of fun, but it just feels a little bit silly. And it's like some of the actors that had material that wasn't terrible, but not really that great either. And like although there's still a lot of good elements that really work in the movie, the story has a good premise. It's told a very compelling way while not taking itself too seriously. The writing gets really thought-provoking with some good relationship between the characters and Wolverine and Rogue. We get to learn Magneto's motives of why he's trying to create an era of mutants, and it gives the villain some depth. The music score from the late Michael Kamen gives a very haunting, beautiful, intense melody, and it complements the film's darker tone very well. And the action sequences are well choreographed to the point that a lot of effort feels like it was put into them. Yeah, so like X-Men is pretty much an allegorical story. It depicts man's intolerance to things that are different, and it gives X-Men a dramatic strength that many other comic book stories lack. They're a bit too wrapped in their like fantasy material, and like Brandon and the crew like made good decisions, ground X-Men in essentially the real world. Like New York's New York. Like there's references to the Holocaust. That's good basis for Magneto's hatred of humans. The characters are really smart enough to find the trappings of the comic world that may seem like a bit ridiculous. Especially like Wolverine in one part, literally knows their code names, and he snickers, and he's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, when it comes to the character front, like, X-Men does suffer a bit from an overload of characters. Like, you got Storm, Professor X, and Magneto's henchmen. They do suffer a bit of character developments. a lack of character development because they just don't have much screen time for everybody. Like, the Wolverine, Rogue, and Magneto get flashed out the best of the characters easily. I feel like those three get the most character development, so we get to become familiar with them and involved in their own story. With the imbalance of character development, though, it becomes a bit of a problem with some of the other X-Men sequels, except for X-Men United. So yeah. So Senator Kelly then later gets abducted by Mystique and Toad, who's played by Ray Park. So Senator Kelly gets brought to Magneto. He tests the machine on Kelly that artificially induces mutation, but Kelly manages to escape imprisonment with his abilities, and after an accident causes Rogue to lose her powers on Wolverine, she then gets convinced by Mystique, who is actually secretly disguised as a schoolmate named Bobby Drake, aka the Iceman, who's played by Shawn Ashmore, that Xavier is angry with her and that she should leave. So Xavier uses Cerebro to locate Rogue at a train station. Mystique authorities Cerebro and sabotages the machine, though. Then we get to the train station where Wolverine arrives and convinces Rogue to stay with Xavier. And then a fight ensues when Magneto, Toad, and Sabretooth arrive to take Rogue. Then when Kelly arrives at Xavier's school, he dissolves into a puddle of water. His mutation becomes unstable. Then the X-Men learn that Magneto was severely weakened in the testing machine on Kelly, and Wolverine realizes now that he intends to use Rogue's ability to transfer his powers to her so that she can power the machine in his place, and putting her life at risk. So Xavier decides to have Cerebro locate Rogue, and it falls into a coma, especially because Mystique's earlier meddling with the device, and our other X-Men character, Jean Grey, played by Famke Janssen, fixes it and uses Cerebro to find Magneto's machine on Liberty Islands. Then Magneto wants to use it on the world leaders there because they're meeting for a summit nearby in Ellis Island. As the group arrives at the top of the statue, they defeat Toad, they incapacitate Mystique. They don't kill her, but they just incapacitate her. Magneto and Sabretooth incapacitate the group as well, though, and they continue with their plans. Magneto then transfers his powers to Rogue, and that's how part of her hair goes white like her comic book self. And now she's forced to use them to start the machine, but Wolverine breaks free, initiates a fight with Sabretooth, but then gets thrown off the top of the statue. Like, right here, like, with this movie, we see the social phenomenon of teenagers who grow up, like, in families who believe in American stuff, and those, like, who embark on the journey to settle in the land of the free, but then they dream as misguided and distorted as it can be. And the powers these superheroes possess is a stark reflection of their inner insecurities, fears, and hopes. And you see these talented bunch of heroes that are unclear the mission, and they're fearing the unknown to what Superman is. Like, furthermore, like, there's no equal, just methods in handling the issue of mutant discrimination. Mutants' existence comes under a threat that's driven by the fear of the mainstream humans. And these circumstances definitely allow those who are different to pursue the American stuff freely, and like it also lacks the tongue-in-cheek camp of like the Schumacher Batman stuff or the studio-directed Batman films. And other recent comic book turn films around this time, like X-Men draws the audience into the world of mutants and superpowers, prevents them from becoming tacky or absurd. There's not much humor in the film, and it delivers some of the best one-liners in a film here. And the direction by Bryan Singer is quite amazing. Like, every action scene, the exposition scene, it's nicely filmed in every way. The action looks very nice and quick, and no quick cuts or shaky cam here. Like, Bryan Singer at the time when this movie came out, he did a decent job with the camera, and he made the X-Men look very good around the time anyways of this movie. The special effects were not bad. Like, the CGI through the movie is definitely revolutionary for 2000, and the Mystique shape-shifting to Wolverine's metal claws coming straight out of his knuckles. Like, there's not a single shot where the audience would probably say it was fake, like, with the special effects, like, throughout X-Men, like, around the time this came out. Probably wouldn't hold up so well today, but back in the 2000, it actually looked very well done. Now, look, guys. Yes, I agree. Bryan Singer, I don't like him anymore. I think he's a piece of shit, no doubt. But as much as I hate Bryan Singer today, he actually didn't do too bad with these first two movies. And this was like back before the asshole he truly was exposed as. Before he was revealed to be an asshole. And through the course of the film, like, we go into many other mutants, both good and evil. Like, each one has a purpose. And there's a reason for their inclusion in the movie. You have a favorite character. By the end of the film, you'll know who your favorite character was, whether it's one of the good mutants, whether it's one of the evil mutants. The fun adventure is pretty infectious. And then, yeah, so after that fight with Sabretooth, this right here, guys, is where we get to the finale of the movie. It's not a bad finale per se, but it's not one of the best final showdowns, I would say. Where after like the whole fight with Sabretooth, Wolverine returns, and then Cyclops and Jean, with help from Jean Grey, they blast Sabretooth out of the statue, and Jean's telekinesis stabilizes him, and Storm uses her abilities to send Wolverine to the top of Magneto's machine. Time is running out though, and Wolverine attempts to stop the machine and save Rogue, but then Magneto has regained some of his strength. He halts Wolverine's claws before he can save Rogue. Cyclops then manages to find a clean shot, and wounds Magneto and allows Wolverine to destroy the machine. Then Wolverine puts his hand on Rogue's face, and she's about to die. Though Wolverine succeeds in transferring his regenerative abilities to her. Then Professor X recovers from his coma, and the group learns after they saw Mystique impersonate Senator Kelly, because we all know Mystique can impersonate anybody on a news broadcast. Even though, despite being stabbed by Wolverine at Liberty Island, she's still alive. Yeah, so like it's obvious she's not dead. You can yeah. Why would she die from a stab? Like, she's a mutant. Right? No, like, it's not like how Dark Phoenix portrays it, where apparently she can easily die getting stabbed. Like, well, then again, that's the shitty Mystique, so I could give less of a fuck. Mystique I don't like. Yeah, I guess, like, gets staked through a heart, apparently, like, but yeah. Like, when it comes to this movie, she gets stabbed by Wolverine's claws, but she still lives. Because this is the proper Mystique. This is the Mystique we actually like. Mystique I like, anyways. So yeah, after it turns out Mystique is still alive, Xavier decides to help him learn more about his past. So Xavier helps Wolverine learn more by sending Wolverine to a military base that's right near Alkali Lake. Then Xavier goes to visit Magneto, who's been arrested. He's put in a plastic prison cell, so because we all know most prison cell bars are made of metal, and Magneto could probably use his powers to break out of those easily, so it makes sense for him to be in a plastic prison cell. It's that one he can't break out of, he can't use his magnetic powers on. And you get an iconic ending shot where the two are playing chess. Right there, because even though Professor X and Magneto are still enemies, there's still times when they're willing to work together to be friends. At times here. And this scene proves it right here. They still have a bit of friendship in them, even though they're kind of still enemies at times. Then Magneto warns his frenemy that he's going to continue his fight, and Xavier promises that he, as well as his students, will always be there to stop him. So yeah, and that's the end of the movie, the first movie. So when it comes to X-Men, it's a good way to end the film, but it's an obvious sequel setup, and it's a little too bit obvious when the chess part happens. Magneto's going to continue his fight. We know, back then, I'm pretty sure when people first saw this, they know Magneto would break out one way or another. Right there. Even in his plastic cell, he'd find a way out. He says he's going to continue his fight, and that's what happens with X2 X-Men United. He gets out. We know that was going to happen. To be fair. Now, yeah, it's not a bad ending, but less obvious sequel setup next time. So it's how the movie ends, and as small as it's decently good, there's reasons why I don't call it a masterpiece, and here's the bad qualities with the movie. Well, so when it comes to the bad qualities of X-Men 1, you got, the characters are mostly, the evil guys, the evil mutants, Magneto's helpers. They have that are Mystique, Sabretooth, and Toad. The ones who work with Magneto, they're not really given anything to do. It's cool to see Mystique transform to other people, which is her well-known power. We don't get much, information about her character on a personal level. And Sabretooth and Toad, they're just characters who have special powers, no personalities. They don't do a thing. They're just there to help Magneto. They feel as if they're basically just there to just be Magneto's henchmen. They don't serve that large of a purpose. So yeah, the character development, in short, is not the greatest. I'd hoped we would get some good character development, but there's just not enough in the movie to satisfy, because that's a little too short, 104 minutes. And honestly, I think this should have been 2 hours, so we could have some decent character developments. Not 104 minutes. We could have, I wish this was 2 hours. Even though they tried, like, they didn't really do much, like, with the character developments, because, like, they only made 104 minutes long. They made it too rushed. The runtime could have been more because they could develop the characters. There's even one mutant that stretches like jelly that could have been developed better with effects and could have also, and I feel like was lazily killed off. How they killed that character off was lazy, and it could have been done better. Right there, and yeah, and the ending is an obvious sequel setup. But regardless, they don't make X-Men a bad movie, and it's still a pretty good film. I just like, there's other Marvel films I like better than it though, and I especially like the sequel better. That's going to be the next review. And regardless of what people think, X-Men is going to forever be known as a movie that made Marvel so iconic. Without this movie, we wouldn't have had films like Spider-Man 2002. We wouldn't have had the Infinity Saga. We wouldn't have had films like, maybe even hell, we probably wouldn't have had films like Batman Begins or The Dark Knight, or yeah, we wouldn't have had a majority of those good superhero films that we all liked. You know? I mean, Blade did kind of help kickstart it, but this was the movie that really was the first to be a major profit. Like, before Blade, Marvel was making some films like Howard the Duck, which was a shitty movie. Then you had, like, there's TV versions of Fantastic Four, Captain America. There was a Dolph Lundgren Punisher that didn't even get much attention. It was this movie that finally got them big profits. So, that being said, guys, in the end, regardless of how I feel Bryan Singer, X-Men may not be the best movie of the franchise, but it is still worth a buy for those that want to see how it all began, and the film that made the superhero genre profitable again, and the first superhero team to be brought to the big screen. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of X-Men 2000, and if we're going to rank X-Men 2000, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a X-Men fan and would love to see a film that revolutionized Jackman as an action star and revived the superhero genre, then totally watch and buy X-Men for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank X-Men, I'm going to give X-Men an 8 out of 10. There we go, guys. We did it with the first film. The first film's all done. So now, we can now move on to our next review, and that is going to be for the sequel. And that's my favorite X-Men film. That still has always been my favorite X-Men film to this day. So yeah, now I want to know in the comments below what you guys think about this movie. Whether you think it's a good start, whether you think it's a bad start, whether you think it's an overhyped start. Let me know down in the comments below. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you just want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.